Economist Gerald Wolman has become a keystone of South Africa's industrial economy and is highly revered wherever he goes. When you ask him about his success, he will tell you he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, but that he had a rural upbringing, and if he wanted something, he had to work hard for it. This attitude is evident in his family as well. Gerald comes from an entrepreneurial family. His dad, who came to South Africa from Lithuania at a young age, was promptly enlisted to fight for 6 months in the Boer War when he was just 14 years old, on the side of the Boers. Some of that determination and go-getter genes were certainly passed on to his son. Gerald Wolman was born on the 19th of January 1927 and was raised in Napier, where he matriculated from the town's Afrikaans High School. His parents owned the only hotel in town. This photo, taken in 1932, shows the 5-year-old Gerald and his parents in front of their hotel. He was an only child and spoke Afrikaans to his mum Zelda and English to his father Morris. He is proud to refer to himself as a Boerejood. Afrikaans has always been close to his heart, and he tolerates no criticism of the language. Gerald's passion for life was evident from an early age. So eager was he to go to school that on his first day they didn't allow him in, as it turned out that he was too young. When the principal saw his enthusiasm, he allowed him to stay for the day and used him as an example to the other kids, telling them, "Julle moet julle sokkies optrek." Gerald flourished at school. He was an active member of the school orchestra and chairman of the debating society. His great love of sport clearly showed when he became the youngest member of the school's first league rugby team for 3 years in a row, as well as the tennis and athletic teams. While in high school, he was also chosen as the youth parliament representative for Napier and Bredasdorp. After leaving school, he went to study BCom at the University of Cape Town in 1945. Study suited him well, and in 1961 he obtained a BCom law degree from Cape Town University. Today he is fluent in 4 different languages: Afrikaans, English, German and Italian, an ability that has been of great help in his many business dealings. In addition to sport, he loves music, especially light classical music, and also has a soft spot for Boeremusiek. Well-known musician André de Villiers taught him to play the accordion, and Gerald even played at his own wedding. In 1947, his father sold the hotel in Napier and bought the model filling station in Goodwood with 9 employees. Gerald joined him while he was still studying for his BCom degree. As a young 32-year-old managing director, Gerald became quite a legend when he built up the Wolman Motors group of companies from the tiny filling station outside Cape Town to a vast national organization in just 3 years. By day, Gerald managed the business, and by night he studied. It was tough, and he remembers many a Saturday night when he wanted to join his friends, but had to don his white jacket and pump fuel at the filling station instead. However, one night he did go to a friend's engagement party, and that's where he met the beautiful, sparkling Bernice. It was love at first sight. This lady had a very fine upbringing in an influential family. Her father was a close friend of Jan Smith's, and the families spent a lot of time together. She was a successful fashion designer and designed clothes for well-known people as well as ministers' wives for the opening of Parliament. Gerald swept her off her feet that night, and on the 5th of March 1953, they were married. For their honeymoon, they sailed to Europe on board the Winchester Castle. As a wedding gift, he received £1,000 from his father, which he promptly used to buy a Hillman. The car went with them to Southampton, but as it was lifted from the ship, it was time for the British workers' tea break. They duly stopped work, and the car was left dangling in the air from the crane. When they finally got it down, it was discovered that the battery had gone flat. Gerald and Berenice spent their first night of marriage at the Clifton Hotel in Clifton. But things did not go quite according to plan. The flowers Gerald had ordered ended up next door, and to top it all, their room had only 2 single beds. But that did not dampen their spirits. Here are the lovebirds in Milan. Meanwhile, the business was booming under Gerald's sharp mind. In the same year they got married, Gerald introduced a 24-hour breakdown service and increased the staff to 70 to cope with the demand. He then had the bright idea of erecting a colourful, large animated neon sign on his premises, the first and only one of its kind in the country. It was advertising brilliance and turned their business into a well-known landmark. Sadly, his father passed away in April 1954. Under Gerald's capable leadership, the business continued to go from strength to strength. After a trip overseas to study the motor industry, Gerald started a direct motor vehicle franchise. In June 1954, he went to Germany, where after tough negotiations, he secured the Borgwood franchise, followed by Goliath and Lloyd Motorcars. This is where he met his mentor, Dr. Walter Goodbrot, whose family built the successful Goodbrot car until the state-sponsored Volkswagen wiped them off the German market. He taught Gerald a lot about cars, as well as the finer things in life, educating him in proper etiquette, for example, which champagne ought to be served with which dishes. All eye-openers for the boerejoetjie from Napier. He also discovered that an artichoke is to be eaten and not a flower. His company subsequently imported and distributed Borgwood, Goliath and Lloyd vehicles directly to the South African public. Their vehicles soon became a well-known sight on South African roads, and demand often exceeded supply. In the 50s, they opened new branches in Windhoek, Cape Town, East London and Port Elizabeth. Gerald further expanded his clever marketing by lending out his cars for promotional events. In 1961, he signed an agreement for Wolman Motors to become the sole agent for Alfa Romeo. He subsequently built the first Alfa Romeo in South Africa. He also became part of the first consortium to import BMWs to South Africa. 20 years later, Gerald either controlled or was a director of 10 major companies in the South African motor industry. At home, things were also going well. Gerald and Berenice had 3 beautiful boys, Mark, Richard and Adrian. Despite his very busy schedule, Gerald proved to be a real family man. As a family, they enjoyed the outdoors and went on countless holiday trips over the years, creating many wonderful memories. Gerald passed his entrepreneurial genes on to his sons. Mark, his eldest son, became one of the largest suppliers of crude oil to South Africa. Tragically, he was murdered in Cape Town and the guilty party was never tracked down. The second son, Richard, obtained his medical degree at the Cape Town University. He is married to Astrid and currently lives in London, where he specializes in psychiatry and medical consulting. Adrian is the youngest. Here he is with his wife and children. He loves boats, is a qualified helicopter pilot and has his own chopper. His company designs and manufactures neon signs and other illuminated signs of any magnitude. He invented and manufactures a special ink which is sought after and sold worldwide. Gerald and Berenice are the proud grandparents of 9 grandchildren. And of course, no mention of this family would be complete without their dogs. The Wolmans are dog lovers and have had an extensive number of 4-legged children over the years. After a marriage of 61 wonderful years, Berenice sadly passed away in 2014. She has left deep footprints on her family's lives and is sorely missed. Gerald played a major role in developing motor racing in South Africa. The first Isabella saloon was to race at Killarney a day after it was offloaded from the ship. That was the introduction of the very popular Isabella on the South African market. With engineering help from experts, he built his own racing car, known as the Wolman Special. He enjoyed racing himself, but with the influence of Berenice, he thought it wise to stop racing personally. His 5 racing cars were often raced in South Africa by famous drivers such as Sterling Moss. Mr. Chapman the owner of the Lotus factory built the first independent suspension formula car intended for Stirling Moss. Stirling agreed that the car could be sold to Gerald, and it was then flown out and fitted with the first Borgwood fuel injection engine. Nothing seemed to be out of reach for this versatile man. He was a pioneer in the export of live crayfish and started the industry with the founding of the Cape Lobster Exporters Association. Prior to this, the crayfish tails were cut off and the rest discarded. Gerald then got the idea of exporting the whole crayfish live instead of just the tail. It took a lot of hard work and dedication, but in typical Gerald fashion, he succeeded and built the first business in Melkbos. It became a huge industry. Gerald sold his business in 1970, but is still advising the French and others even today. As if he didn't have enough on his plate already, Gerald became the president of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry in 2008. He established trading ties with the rest of the world shortly after the wall came down and led the first trade mission to California. For the past 12 years, Gerald has been serving as a judge for the prestigious annual Cape Chamber of Commerce Exporter of the Year competition. It is apt that they named a section the Gerald Wolman Trophy for the best exporter to Africa. Gerald was also vice chairman of Cape Town's trade and investment agency, Wesgrow. He also founded Imali Express, a foreign exchange company with 18 branches countrywide. Gerald has not only been admired for his business acumen, but also for his humanitarian endeavours. He gladly became a charter member of 2 Rotary clubs and served as president for 3 terms, including being the centennial president of the mother club being Cape Town. Years later, in 2015, the highest honour of Rotary International was bestowed on Gerald, and he became a Paul Harris Fellow. In 2008, he became the first honorary consul for Georgia in South Africa. He strives to promote tourism and trading ties between the 2 countries. He finds Georgia's history fascinating, as the country was part of Russia until 1920, and it was the first country to adopt the Christian faith in 330 AD. Georgia claims to be the cradle of winemaking, and many wineries in Georgia still ferment its wine in clay pots in the ground. Georgia now has a fully accredited embassy in Pretoria, headed by the very capable and well-respected ambassador, His Excellency Becca de Wali. Currently, Gerald is a very active and much-loved member of the Cape Town Consular Corps. In recognition of his excellence, Georgia has honoured him with this rare certificate. Gerald's love for rugby is well known. He sponsored a tour by Georgia's rugby team to South Africa and co-founded the South African Parliamentary Rugby Team, with whom he toured the world. Here he shares some strategy with Lord Mackay of the Scottish Parliament Rugby Club. He also visited London with many team members and other parliamentarians to raise funds for the rugby team. At a parliamentary function, he met Prime Minister Gordon Brown, who sponsored £10,000. Gerald's passion for fine music is another side of this extraordinary versatile man. Always on the lookout for something new, Gerald discovered the wonderfully talented young Georgian pianist Mariam Bachashvili and introduced her to South African audiences. He was also a sponsor, and in 2014 she became the first woman to win the prestigious international Franz Liszt piano competition in Utrecht. Never one to shy away from a new challenge, at the age of 85, he entered the world of entertainment by hosting his own music program, What a Wonderful World, on Fine Music Radio. He has used music to build bridges between communities, but mainly to promote Georgian music and in all other aspects. Amidst all the classical music, he insisted on playing Boer music on the radio station and threatened to walk away when the bosses did not want to allow it. They finally relented. The music was played and the response was overwhelmingly positive, with people phoning in from all over the country to congratulate him. What a wonderful world. And now, at the age of 90, Gerald shows no signs of slowing down. What a remarkable life this dynamic man has had. His legacy will endure, and one wonders what he will come up with next. Gerald, we salute you.